I am 30 years old, and my story begins at my sister's wedding. Her name is Clara. She is my best friend, and seeing her happy was the most important thing in the world to me that day. I was her maid of honor. I had spent months helping her plan every detail, from the flowers to the font on the invitations. Everything was supposed to be perfect. My husband, Mark, was there with me. We had been married for 5 years. To an outsider, we probably looked like a normal, happy couple. But on the inside, things were not so simple. There was a quiet tension that had been growing for a long time, a hairline crack in the foundation of our marriage that was slowly getting wider. Mark had a habit of making me the punchline of his jokes. He did it at dinner parties with friends, at holiday gatherings with his family, and sometimes even just when we were alone. He would tell a story about something I did, exaggerating the details to make it sound funnier, more foolish. He would call it teasing and tell me I was too sensitive when I asked him to stop. He said I needed to learn to laugh at myself. But it never felt like laughing with him. It always felt like he was laughing at me and inviting everyone else to join in. It made me feel small. It made me feel like my feelings did not matter as much as his need to be the center of attention, the funny guy in the room. His family was no better. His mother, Eleanor, and his sister, Jessica, treated me with a kind of polite condescension. They saw me as the quiet, serious woman who was holding their fun-loving Mark back. They would exchange little glances when I did not laugh at one of Mark's jokes about me. Jessica would often say things like, "Oh, Anna, you have to admit, that's pretty funny." They were a team, and I was always on the outside. They reinforced his belief that his behavior was normal, even charming. My own family saw it, of course. My sister Clara hated it. She would defend me, but that often just made things worse. Mark would accuse me of running to my sister and turning her against him. So, over time, I started to just endure it. I would put on a tight smile, wait for the laughter to die down, and change the subject. I told myself it was just his way. I told myself it was not a big deal. I was wrong. The morning of the wedding was beautiful. The sun was shining, and Clara was glowing with happiness. As her maid of honor, I was busy from the moment I woke up. I helped her with her dress. I made sure her hair and makeup were perfect. I held her hand when she started to feel nervous before the ceremony. Seeing her so full of joy made me forget about the little anxieties I had about the day. It made me forget about the knot in my stomach that always seemed to form when Mark was in a big social setting. He seemed fine that morning. He was charming and helpful, telling my parents how wonderful everything looked and complimenting Clara. But I noticed he was a little too excited about the reception. He kept mentioning the speech he was going to give. "I've got a killer toast planned," he told me while we were waiting for the photographer. "It's going to bring the house down." A cold feeling washed over me. He was not the best man. He was not the father of the bride. He was not scheduled to give a speech. "What are you talking about?" I asked him, trying to keep my voice light. "You are not giving a toast." He shrugged and grinned. "I talked to the DJ. He said he can squeeze me in. I am the bride's brother-in-law. I should get to say a few words." The knot in my stomach tightened. "Mark, please do not. The schedule is already packed. And today is about Clara and Tom. It is not about putting on a show." His smile faded. His eyes grew hard. "Why do you always do that?" he said, his voice low so no one else could hear. "Why do you have to suck the fun out of everything? It is just a short, funny speech. A little story to make people laugh." "What kind of story?" I pressed. I needed to know. "Is it about me?" "Maybe," he said defensively. "What if it is? Do you not trust me? I would never do anything to embarrass you on purpose. You need to lighten up, Anna. Seriously. It is a wedding. People are supposed to have fun." I wanted to argue more, but my mom called me over to help with the flower girl's dress. As I walked away, I looked back at Mark. He was already laughing with one of his cousins, his good mood apparently restored. But I could not shake the feeling of dread. I knew my husband. I knew his definition of funny was very different from mine. I had a terrible feeling that he was about to prove that to everyone. The perfect day suddenly had a dark cloud hanging over it, and there was nothing I could do but wait for the storm to break. I tried to push the feeling away. I focused on my sister. I smiled for the pictures. I walked down the aisle and stood beside her as she said her vows. But in the back of my mind, the dread was a constant, low hum. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. The ceremony was lovely. Clara and Tom looked so happy together, and for a little while, I was able to forget my worries. I was completely lost in the moment of their joy. We moved on to the reception hall, which was decorated beautifully. Twinkling lights were strung from the ceiling, and the tables were covered in white linens and flowers. Everyone was happy and celebratory. The food was delicious, and the music was great. I sat at the head table between my sister and Mark. Clara kept leaning over to tell me how perfect everything was, how she could not have done it without me. I felt a surge of love for her. I was so glad I could be there for her. Then the speeches began. My father went first. He gave a sweet, heartfelt speech about watching Clara grow up. He told a few gentle, funny stories from her childhood that made everyone smile. He welcomed Tom into the family. It was perfect. Then Tom's best man gave his toast. It was funny and warm, full of stories about their friendship. He poked fun at Tom in a way that was clearly affectionate, the way true friends do. There was no cruelty in it, no edge. It was just love. I felt Mark shift in his seat beside me. He had a strange, competitive energy coming off of him. He was watching the best man like he was studying an opponent. After the best man finished, the DJ took the microphone. And now we have a surprise toast from the bride's brother-in-law, Mark, he announced cheerfully. My heart sank. So he had actually done it. He had gone behind my back and arranged this. Clara looked at me, her brow furrowed in confusion. I did not know he was speaking, she whispered. Neither did I whispered back, my mouth suddenly dry. Mark stood up and walked confidently to the microphone, a wide grin on his face. He looked out at the crowd, soaking in the attention. Thank you, he said, as if he were a celebrity accepting an award. For those of you who do not know me, I am Mark, Anna's husband. And through her, I have had the great pleasure of getting to know Clara and becoming part of this wonderful family. He started off well enough. He said some nice things about Clara and Tom. He complimented the wedding. I started to relax just a tiny bit. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he had listened to me. Maybe he would just be sweet and charming. But then his tone shifted. A familiar, mischievous glint appeared in his eyes. It was the same look he got right before he was about to tell one of his jokes about me. Being married to Anna has taught me so much, he continued, turning to look directly at me. It has taught me about patience. It has taught me about compromise. And it has taught me that some people are just born without a sense of direction. A few people chuckled politely. I felt my face start to burn. I knew where this was going. I will never forget one of our first road trips together, he said, his voice booming through the speakers. We were driving to the beach for the weekend. I had to stop for gas, so I put Anna in charge of the map. She was so confident. I got this, she said. Just drive. He paused for dramatic effect. Well, 2 hours later, we were hopelessly lost in the middle of nowhere. I am talking banjo music and you ain't from around here, are ya, boy? Territory. The laughter from the crowd was a little louder this time. I stared down at my plate, my hands clenched into fists in my lap. This was a story I had told him in confidence. I had been so embarrassed about it. I was young and had misread the map, and we had ended up getting a flat tire. We had to call for a tow truck. It was a stressful, horrible afternoon that had ended in tears. I had shared it with him as a moment of vulnerability, and now he was turning it into a stand-up comedy routine for 200 people. And the best part, Mark went on, clearly enjoying himself, is what we found when we finally got the trunk open to get the spare tire. What was in there, honey? He looked at me, waiting for me to play along. I said nothing. I could not speak. I just shook my head slightly. He laughed as if my silence was part of the act. I will tell you. A half-eaten bag of gummy worms, a single high-heeled shoe, and about 20 overdue library books.
No spertire.
She had taken it out weeks before to make more room for her important things and forgotten to put it back. The room erupted in laughter. It was a loud, rolling wave of sound. Mark's family, especially his sister Jessica and his mother Eleanor, were laughing the hardest. They were wiping tears from their eyes. Mark took a bow, basking in their approval. He was the hero of the story, the capable man dealing with his silly, scatterbrained wife. I felt the heat in my face intensify until I was sure I was glowing red. I felt hundreds of pairs of eyes on me. I felt their pity and their amusement. I was a cartoon character, a joke. And my husband was the one who had made me into one. He finally wrapped it up. So, here's to Clara and Tom. May your journey together always have a full tank of gas and a good GPS. And Tom, my advice to you is this. Never, ever let Clara be the navigator. He raised his glass. Cheers. The laughter died down into scattered applause. Mark walked back to the table, his face flushed with triumph. He sat down next to me and squeezed my leg. See, he whispered in my ear. I told you it was a good story. They loved it. Lighten up. I could not look at him. I could not speak. All the air had been sucked out of my lungs. It was not just the story. It was the public nature of it. It was the fact that he did it at my own sister's wedding. He had taken a moment that was supposed to be about her and made it about him, about getting a laugh at my expense. He had taken a private memory, a moment of my own foolishness that I had trusted him with, and broadcast it to the world as a joke. In that moment, something inside me broke. The part of me that made excuses for him, the part that told myself to be less sensitive, the part that tried to keep the peace. It shattered into a million tiny pieces. All that was left was a cold, hard certainty. This could not go on. This was the end. He had finally, irrevocably, crossed the line. I stood up from the table without a word. My chair scraped against the floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet that followed the applause. Mark looked up at me, his smile faltering. Where are you going? He asked. I need some air, I managed to say, my voice tight and strained. I walked away from the head table, feeling the eyes of every guest follow me. I did not look at anyone. I did not look at my sister, though I could feel her worried gaze on my back. I just focused on putting one foot in front of the other, walking toward the exit of the grand ballroom. My steps felt heavy, like I was wading through thick mud. Each footfall was a struggle against the weight of the humiliation he had just piled on top of me. I found the ladies' restroom and pushed the door open, grateful for the sudden silence and solitude. The room was empty. I leaned against the cool marble of the counter, my hands gripping the edge so hard my knuckles turned white. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. My face was pale, except for 2 bright red splotches on my cheeks. My eyes were wide with a mixture of shock and fury. I looked like a stranger to myself. The woman staring back at me was not the one who patiently endured her husband's jokes. She was someone else. Someone I had not seen in a very long time. I took a deep, shuddering breath, then another. The anger was like a fire in my chest, burning away the years of quiet resentment and replacing them with a hot, clear rage. He did not just embarrass me. He had planned to do it. His defensiveness that morning, his insistence on giving a speech, it all made sense now. He had this story locked and loaded, ready to use me as his prop to get a few minutes of applause. He had stood up in front of our families, our friends, and my sister's new family, and declared to all of them that I was incompetent, that I was someone to be laughed at, not respected. He had made a choice. He had chosen the laughter of strangers over my dignity. The door to the restroom opened softly, and my sister Clara came in. She was still in her beautiful white wedding dress, but her face was etched with concern. "Anna, are you okay?" she asked, her voice gentle. I shook my head, unable to speak. A single tear escaped and traced a hot path down my cheek. I angrily wiped it away. I was not going to cry. Not over him. Clara came over and put her arms around me. "What he did was awful," she said, her voice fierce. "It was cruel and unforgivable. I am so sorry, Anna. I am going to go out there and tell him to leave right now. He is not welcome here. I pulled back, shaking my head again. No, I said, and my voice sounded surprisingly strong, even to my own ears. Do not do that. This is your wedding day. Do not let him ruin it. He already has, she insisted. Look at you. He hurt you. I am not going to let him get away with that. He will not get away with it. I promised her. I will handle it, but not now. And not by making a scene that will ruin your reception. Please, Clara, go back out there and enjoy your party. Dance with your husband. This is your day. She looked at me, her eyes searching my face. Are you sure? She asked. You do not have to protect him. You do not have to protect me. I am not protecting him, I said, and the cold certainty I had felt at the table returned, stronger than ever. I am just waiting. The DJ said it is the maid of honor's turn to give a toast soon. I think I have something I need to say. A flicker of understanding crossed Clara's face. She saw the new hardness in my eyes, the resolve in my posture. She nodded slowly. Okay, she said. But if you need me, I am right there. I have your back. Always. I know, I said, giving her a small, grateful smile. Now go. Dance. She hugged me one more time and then left, closing the door quietly behind her. I was alone again. I turned back to the mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed clearer now. The rage was still there, but it was no longer a wildfire. It was focused. It was a cold, sharp point. For years, I had let Mark define me with his stories. He had painted me as silly, disorganized, and overly emotional. And I had let him. I had stayed quiet, hoping that my silence would buy me peace. But it had not bought me peace. It had only bought him more opportunities to disrespect me. He had shown me who he was, over and over again. And tonight, in front of everyone, I had finally believed him. My mind started working, connecting the dots of a long and painful pattern. It was not just the big, public humiliations. It was the 1,000 tiny cuts every day. It was the way he would dismiss my career as a little hobby, even though I was a graphic designer with my own freelance clients. It was the way he would interrupt me when I was talking to tell the story better, correcting my details as if I were a child. It was the way he shared private things I told him with his mother and sister, turning our intimate life into gossip for them to dissect. I remembered a game night a few months ago. I had a deep fear of spiders, something I had told him about when we were first dating. He thought it was amusing. At that game night, he mentioned it to our friends. Anna is so terrified of spiders, you would think she saw a ghost, he had said with a laugh. Later that night, one of his friends, thinking it would be hilarious, tossed a realistic-looking fake spider into my lap. I had screamed and almost fallen out of my chair. Mark had laughed harder than anyone.
See, he had said.
Priceless. At the time, I had been angry at his friend, but now I saw it clearly. Mark had set the stage. He had given his friend the ammunition. He had found my vulnerability and offered it up for someone else's entertainment. My best friend, Sarah, was at the wedding. She had seen the whole thing. I needed to talk to her. I needed to know if I was crazy, if I was overreacting like Mark always said I was. I left the restroom and found her standing near the bar, looking worried. When she saw me, she rushed over. Anna, oh my God, she said, grabbing my hands. Are you okay? That was the most disgusting thing I have ever seen. I wanted to throw my drink at him. Her immediate, unfiltered anger was a balm on my wounded pride. So, I am not just being too sensitive? I asked, the words Mark always used coming out of my mouth automatically. Sarah's eyes flashed with anger on my behalf. Sensitive? Anna, he humiliated you in front of 200 people. He took a private moment and twisted it into a caricature to make himself look good. That is not teasing. That is emotional abuse. And this is not the first time he has done it. She was right. She started listing other examples, things I had forgotten or minimized. The time he told his whole family about the promotion I did not get at work, framing it as me, not being cut out for the corporate world. The time he made fun of the dress I had bought for a party, saying I looked like a lampshade until I went and changed. My confidence shattered. Each memory she brought up was another brick in the wall I was building around my heart. A wall to keep him out for good. He does this all the time, Sarah said, her voice full of conviction. He chips away at you, piece by piece, so you start to believe his version of you. The silly, incompetent version. But that is not who you are. He does it because he is insecure. Making you look small makes him feel big. Hearing it from her, hearing my own scattered thoughts articulated so clearly, solidified everything. I was not overreacting. My feelings were not just valid. They were a long overdue response to years of disrespect. This was not a mistake he had made. It was a conscious choice, part of a pattern of behavior designed to keep me in my place. And I was done staying in my place. He is not going to get the last word, I said, my voice low and determined. It is my turn to make a toast soon. Sarah looked at me, a slow smile spreading across her face. What are you going to do? She asked. I am going to tell a story too, I said. But my story will be the truth. The decision was made. The only question left was what truth to tell. I needed something that would cut as deep as he had cut me, something that would dismantle the charming, funny guy persona he had so carefully constructed. I needed to hit him where he lived, his pride, his image, his wallet. A vague memory started to surface, something that had bothered me a few weeks ago, but that I had pushed aside in the name of keeping the peace. It was a business trip he had taken. It had felt off from the beginning. He had been unusually secretive about it, deflecting my questions with annoyance. He had said it was a last-minute conference for work, a networking opportunity he could not miss. But when I had asked for details, like which hotel he was staying at, he had gotten angry. Why do you need to know everything? He had snapped. It is a work trip, Anna. It is boring. I will be back on Sunday. Just leave it alone. I had left it alone. I had told myself I was being paranoid, that I needed to trust him. But now, in the harsh light of his public betrayal, that secrecy felt sinister. The story had inconsistencies I had chosen to ignore. He had been vague about which colleagues were going. His packing had seemed odd for a business conference. He had packed more casual clothes than suits. And when he came back, he had been strangely distant. He had brought me a cheap souvenir from the airport, a keychain, which was unusual for him. It felt like a clumsy attempt to cover his tracks. My mind started racing. I needed to know more. I needed proof. My own phone had died earlier in the evening from taking so many pictures. It was the perfect excuse. I walked back toward the head table. My steps were steady now. Purposeful. Mark was laughing with Tom's best man, looking completely carefree. He had already moved on from the humiliation he had caused. For him, it was over. For me, it was just beginning. He saw me approaching and his smile widened. He probably thought I had gone to the restroom, composed myself, and was ready to come back and be the good, forgiving wife. He was about to find out how wrong he was. I stopped beside his chair. Mark, I said, my voice calm and even. My phone is dead. Can I borrow yours? I need to call my mom and check in on her. She was feeling a little overwhelmed earlier. It was a plausible lie. My mother was emotional, and a wedding was a lot for her. He did not even hesitate. Yeah, of course, honey, he said, pulling his phone from his pocket and handing it to me. He was already turning back to his conversation, dismissing me. He had no idea he had just handed me the weapon I was going to use to destroy him. I took the phone and walked away from the table, my heart pounding in my chest. I did not go outside. I did not go to a place where he could see me. I found a small, empty alcove near the coat check, a quiet corner hidden from the main ballroom. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the phone. I knew his passcode. It was our anniversary. The irony was so bitter it almost made me laugh. I swiped open his messages. My breath caught in my throat. This was it. There was no going back after this. I scrolled through the list of recent conversations. There were texts from his friends, messages from his fantasy football league, a group chat with his family. I avoided that one for a moment. I needed to be strategic. I opened the thread with his best friend, Dave. I scrolled back a few weeks, to the dates of his supposed business trip, there was nothing. He had not mentioned a work conference to his best friend at all. That was strange. Mark told Dave everything. My eyes landed on the group chat with his family, him, his mother Eleanor, and his sister Jessica. My finger hovered over it. This was the inner circle. This was where the truth would be. I took a deep breath and tapped on the screen. I scrolled back, my heart hammering against my ribs. And then I saw it. A series of messages from 3 weeks ago. Jessica had written, "So, how was the big romantic getaway? Did you spoil Nicole rotten?" My blood ran cold. Nicole. His ex-girlfriend. The one he had dated for 2 years before me. The one he always claimed had been a crazy, dramatic mistake. My eyes scanned down, reading his reply. Mark's message read, "It was amazing. Pine Ridge Resort is even better than we remembered. We had the suite with the fireplace. So much better than a boring work conference. LOL." I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. It was not just cheating. It was a planned trip to a place they had been before, a place that held memories for them. He had lied to my face, with ease, and gone to relive his past with another woman. But it got worse. I kept scrolling. Jessica texted back, "Haha, amazing. Does Anna have any clue?" Mark's reply was the blow that took my breath away. Not a single one. She is too wrapped up in all this wedding stuff for her sister to even notice. And I told her I used the bonus from work to pay for it. She will never check the joint account. The joint account. The savings account we had been carefully contributing to for 3 years. The money we were saving for a down payment on a house. The future we were supposed to be building together. I quickly exited the messages and opened his banking app. He was logged in. I navigated to our joint savings. My hands were trembling so badly, I could barely hold the phone steady. I scrolled through the recent transactions. And there it was. 3 weeks ago. A charge for $5,000. The description was for the Pine Ridge Resort. He had not used a work bonus. There was no work bonus. He had stolen our future to pay for a romantic weekend with his ex-girlfriend. He had drained our dreams to fund his betrayal. And his sister knew. She was his confidant, his co-conspirator. They had laughed about it together. They had laughed at me. The trust one had in him, the very foundation of our 5-year marriage, crumbled into dust. It was not just infidelity. It was a deep, calculated deception involving money, lies, and the collusion of his family. And then I found the final piece. The piece that connected his betrayal from 3 weeks ago to his cruelty tonight. I went back to the text thread with Jessica, scrolling to the messages from the past few days. Jessica had written, "Are you ready for your big speech at the wedding? You better make it good." Mark replied, "Don't worry. I've got the perfect story about Anna. The one about the road trip where she got us lost and had no spare tire. It's a classic. It will kill." Jessica's response was a series of laughing emojis. "Perfect. It will be hilarious. Show everyone you are still the fun one, not whipped like she wants you to be. It will put her in her place a little." Everything clicked into place. The speech was not a spontaneous, misguided attempt at humor. It was a planned attack. A premeditated act of humiliation, encouraged by his sister. They had decided together that I needed to be put in my place. They had plotted to make me the punchline at my own sister's wedding. The malice of it was breathtaking. This was not just a flawed husband making a mistake. This was a cruel man and his equally cruel sister, working together to belittle and control me. I stood there in the quiet alcove, the phone heavy in my hand. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The man I had married did not exist. He was a fiction. The real Mark was the man in these text messages, a liar, a thief, and a bully who conspired with his sister to hurt me. There was no confusion left. There was no doubt. There was only a terrible, chilling clarity. I knew exactly what I had to do. I did not delete the messages. I did not take pictures of them with a different phone. I did something much simpler. I forwarded the most damning text to myself. The ones about the trip with Nicole. The ones about the $5,000. And the ones where he and Jessica planned my public humiliation. A little notification popped up on his screen and then vanished. He would not notice it. Not yet. Then I cleared the notification and closed his messages, leaving his phone exactly as I had found it. I walked back into the ballroom. Mark was still at the head table, holding court with a group of his cousins. He saw me and his face lit up with a self-satisfied smile. He thought I was coming back to him, defeated. I walked past him without a glance and handed the phone back to my father, who was sitting a few seats down. "Dad, can you give this back to Mark?" I asked calmly. My mom did not answer. My father nodded, taking the phone. Mark looked confused for a moment, his brow furrowing. He had expected me to bring it to him, to re-enter his orbit. I was already breaking the pattern. I went and sat down, not in my original seat next to him, but in an empty chair next to my friend Sarah. I needed the space. I needed to be away from him. He watched me, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. I ignored him. I turned to Sarah. "I have everything I need," I whispered to her. She looked at me, her eyes wide with anticipation. "What did you find?" "More than you can imagine," I said. "He is not just a jerk. He is a monster." Just then, the DJ's voice boomed through the speakers again. "All right, everyone, let's keep the good feelings going. It is time for a toast from our lovely maid of honor, Anna." A smattering of applause went through the room. I saw Mark clap enthusiastically, a big, fake smile plastered on his face. He was probably expecting me to give a tearful, sappy speech about my sister. He was expecting me to be the sweet, emotional Anna he had just finished mocking. He had no idea what was coming. I stood up. A strange sense of calm washed over me. The anger was still there, a cold, hard stone in my stomach, but my hands were steady. My mind was clear. I knew my lines. I had been rehearsing them in my head ever since I read those texts. This was not going to be a speech. It was going to be a verdict. I walked to the microphone, my heels clicking on the dance floor. The room quieted down. Everyone was looking at me. I could feel their curiosity, their pity. They were the audience for my humiliation. Now they were going to be the audience for my liberation. I looked out at the faces in the crowd. I saw my sister Clara, giving me a small, encouraging nod. I saw my parents, their faces full of love and concern. And then I saw Mark. He was leaning back in his chair, a smug look on his face. He winked at me. He actually winked. He thought we were still a team. He thought this was all a game. I took a deep breath and began. "Good evening, everyone," I said, my voice clear and strong. It did not waver. "First, I want to say how incredibly happy I am for my sister, Clara, and my new brother-in-law, Tom. Clara, you are my best friend, and seeing you this happy is the greatest gift. I wish you both a lifetime of love, laughter, and true partnership." I paused, letting those words hang in the air. I looked over at Clara and Tom, and I meant every word. They were the real thing. They had what I thought I had. What I now knew was a lie. Then I turned my gaze slowly, deliberately, until it landed on my husband. The smile on his face was still there, but it was starting to look a little strained. He could sense the shift in the room. He could feel that this was not going to be the typical maid of honor speech. My husband, Mark, gave a very memorable toast earlier. I continued, my voice dripping with a sweetness that was pure acid. He told a story, a funny story, and it got me thinking about the nature of stories, about the things we share with our partners and the things we keep secret. The room was completely silent now. You could have heard a pin drop. Mark was no longer smiling. He was sitting up straight, his hands flat on the table. His sister Jessica was staring at me, her mouth slightly open. "A good marriage, I think, is built on trust and support," I said, my eyes locked on Mark's. "It is about lifting each other up, not tearing each other down in front of 200 people for a cheap laugh." A quiet gasp went through the room. I saw my mother put her hand to her chest. Mark's face was starting to lose its color. He looked pale under the warm lights of the ballroom. "It is about being a team," I went on, my voice gaining strength with every word. "It is about honesty. For example, when one person wants to go on a special trip, a trip to recharge and focus on their career. The other person should be happy for them, even if they cannot go along. I let that sentence sink in. I was laying the trap, piece by piece. Mark knew exactly what I was talking about. His eyes darted around the room, as if he was looking for an escape route. There was none. Like Mark's recent business trip, I said, my voice bright and conversational. I was so proud of him for getting that opportunity.
He was so excited about it.
He went to the beautiful Pine Ridge Resort, a truly top-notch place, from what I hear. Now his face was as white as a sheet. Jessica looked like she had seen a ghost. Her fork clattered onto her plate, the sound echoing in the silent room. They knew. They knew that I knew. But they did not know how I knew, or how much. He was so committed to this work opportunity, I continued, savoring every moment of their dawning horror. He was so dedicated that he even decided to invest in it. He took $5,000 from our joint savings account, the money we were saving for a down payment on a house. He used it for that trip. What a go-getter. So focused on his future. The silence in the room was now thick with tension. People were exchanging confused, shocked glances. My father was staring at Mark with a look of pure fury. My sister Clara had her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide. I paused, letting the silence stretch until it was almost unbearable. I looked directly at Mark, who was frozen in his chair, his face a mask of disbelief and panic. This was the moment, the final killing blow. The only thing is, I said, my voice dropping just a little, becoming more intimate, as if I were sharing a secret with everyone in the room, I found out recently that it was not a business trip. And he was not alone. He was there with his ex-girlfriend, Nicole. A collective, audible gasp swept through the ballroom. It was a wave of shock and outrage. Mark's mother, Eleanor, looked like she was going to faint. Jessica had buried her face in her hands. I held up my champagne flute. My hand was perfectly steady. So, I would like to make a toast, I said, my voice ringing out with absolute finality. To my sister, Clara, and to Tom. May you have a marriage full of the honesty, loyalty, and respect that you both so deeply deserve. And to my husband, Mark, I said, turning my whole body to face him, may you have the life you deserve, too. You are now free to pursue it. With Nicole. And, without my half of our savings account, this marriage is over. I clinked my glass softly against the microphone. The sound was like a gunshot in the silent room. Then I placed the microphone back in its stand with a decisive click. I turned and walked away from the stage, my head held high. I did not look back. I did not need to. I could feel the chaos erupting behind me. I could feel the world I had shared with him shattering. And for the first time in years, I felt completely, utterly free. As I walked past the head table, a hand shot out and grabbed my arm. It was Mark. His grip was tight, desperate. His face was ashen, his eyes wide with a terrifying combination of rage and fear. The smug, confident man from 10 minutes ago was gone. In his place was a cornered animal. "Anna, what did you do?" he whispered, his voice a hoarse, strangled sound. The noise in the room was starting to swell, a low murmur of shocked conversations, but in our little bubble of space, his whisper was all I could hear. "You have ruined everything." He looked around at the staring faces, at the dawning comprehension on the faces of his friends and family. "Everything stopped," he breathed, the words barely audible. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up into his eyes. I felt nothing.
No pity, no regret.
Just a vast, empty space where my love for him used to be. "I told the truth, Mark," I said, my own voice quiet but clear as a bell. "You should try it sometime." I pulled my arm from his grasp. His fingers felt weak, his strength gone. I did not wait for his response. I kept walking. My sister, Clara, met me at the edge of the dance floor. Her face was a storm of emotions, shock, anger, and a fierce, protective love. She threw her arms around me, her beautiful white dress rustling against mine. "I am so proud of you," she whispered in my ear. That was the bravest thing I have ever seen. Behind us, the chaos was escalating. I could hear a woman's voice rising in anger. It was Eleanor, Mark's mother. "How could you do this?" she was screeching, no longer the picture of polite composure. "How could you humiliate my son like this in public?" My father's deep voice cut through her tirade. "You should be asking your son how he could humiliate my daughter," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Now I suggest you and your family leave. You are no longer welcome here." I did not want to be the cause of any more disruption to my sister's wedding. The damage was done. My point had been made. "I should go," I said to Clara, pulling away from her hug. "I do not want to ruin the rest of your night." "You did not ruin anything," she insisted, her eyes flashing. "He did. But you are right. You should get out of here before he tries to talk to you. Go to Sarah's place. I will call you tomorrow. We will figure everything out. I love you." "I love you too," I said. I gave her one last squeeze, then turned to my best friend, Sarah, who was already waiting by the door with my purse and my coat. She wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "Come on," she said gently. "Let's go." Together, we walked out of the ballroom, leaving the wreckage of my marriage behind us. The cool night air felt wonderful on my hot face. As we walked to the car, I did not look back. There was nothing left for me there. The life I had been living was over, and a new, unknown one was just beginning. I was terrified, but I was also filled with a sense of profound relief. The weight I had been carrying for years had finally been lifted. I was free. The drive to Sarah's house was mostly silent. The adrenaline from the confrontation was starting to wear off, leaving me feeling hollowed out and shaky. Sarah just drove, occasionally reaching over to give my hand a reassuring squeeze. When we got to her apartment, she made me a cup of tea and sat with me on her couch, wrapped in a warm blanket. "You know he is going to lose his mind," she said after a while. "I know," I replied, my voice raspy. "I am expecting it." As if on cue, my phone, which I had plugged into a charger, buzzed to life. It was a text from Mark. The first of many. The first message was pleading. "Anna, please call me. We need to talk. This is a huge misunderstanding." I stared at the screen and felt a bitter laugh escape me. A misunderstanding? How could text messages in his own words be a misunderstanding? I did not reply. A few minutes later, another message came through. This one was angrier. "You had no right to do that. You aired our private business in front of everyone. You destroyed my reputation. My mother is a mess." I still did not reply. His reputation. That was all he cared about. Not the fact that he had cheated on me, stolen from me, and conspired to humiliate me. Only how it made him look. The texts kept coming, each one more frantic and hostile than the last. He accused me of being crazy, of being vindictive, of trying to ruin his life. He said I had taken his joke too seriously. He said the trip with Nicole meant nothing. They were just friends. It was a series of pathetic, transparent lies. With every message he sent, my resolve hardened. I had done the right thing. Finally, I could not take it anymore. I picked up the phone, but I did not reply to him. I just blocked his number. Then I blocked his sister, Jessica. Then his mother, Eleanor. I blocked every member of his family I could think of. I was building a digital wall, a fortress to keep their toxicity out. It felt good. It felt powerful. The next morning, I woke up on Sarah's couch feeling surprisingly rested. For the first time in years, I had not spent the night worrying about what Mark might say or do next. The uncertainty was gone. I knew where I stood. I was alone, and it was better than being with him.
My phone rang.
It was Clara. "How are you?" she asked, her voice tired but firm. "I am okay," I said. "Really? How was the rest of the wedding?" She sighed. "It was
Tense.
Mark and his family left right after you did. His mother was making a huge scene, crying and yelling about you. My dad and Tom's dad basically had to escort them out. After they were gone, things calmed down. People were mostly just talking about what happened. And you should know, Anna, Every single person was on your side. My new mother-in-law came up to me and said you were a hero. A few of my friends want to start a fan club for you. I smiled, a real, genuine smile. I am glad it did not ruin everything for you. It did not, she said. The only thing that would have ruined my wedding is seeing my sister be treated like that and not doing anything about it. You did what you had to do. What happens now? Now I get a lawyer, I said, the words feeling solid and real in my mouth. And that is exactly what I did. On Monday morning, I was in the office of a divorce attorney Sarah had recommended. I told her the whole story, from the years of small humiliations to the final, spectacular betrayal. I showed her the text messages I had forwarded to myself from Mark's phone. Her eyes widened as she read them. Well, she said, looking up at me, this is what we in the business call a slam dunk. The infidelity is clear. The dissipation of marital assets, that $5,000 he spent on his girlfriend, is documented. And the premeditated cruelty. A judge is not going to look kindly on that. She advised me to immediately go to the bank and withdraw half of the money from all of our remaining joint accounts before Mark had a chance to drain them. I left her office and went straight to the bank. The teller counted out the cash for me, and as I put it into my purse, I felt a sense of security I had not felt in years. It was not just money. It was my freedom. It was my future, and I was taking it back. I had a few other conversations in the days that followed. My parents called, telling me how proud they were of me. We never liked the way he treated you, honey, my mom said, her voice thick with emotion. We saw how he tried to dim your light. We are so glad you are free of him. Even my cousin, who is usually very neutral and tried to avoid family drama, sent me a text. Just wanted to say, I am thinking of you. What you did at the wedding was legendary. No one will be forgetting that anytime soon. He had it coming. The validation from my family and friends was a soothing balm. For so long, Mark had made me feel like I was the problem, that my reactions were too extreme. Now, the world was confirming that he was the one who was wrong. About a week after the wedding, Mark showed up at our apartment. I was there with Sarah, packing my things into boxes. I had decided to move out, to make a clean break. When the doorbell rang, my heart jumped into my throat. I looked at Sarah, and she gave me a determined nod. I opened the door. Mark was standing there. He looked terrible. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he had not shaved. He looked smaller somehow, less confident. Anna, he said, his voice hoarse. Can we please just talk? There is nothing to talk about, Mark, I said, blocking the doorway. My lawyer will be in touch with yours. I do not want to talk to lawyers, he pleaded. I want to talk to my wife. I am not your wife anymore, I said, my voice cold. You made that clear when you decided to take a vacation with your ex-girlfriend using our house fund. His face twisted in frustration. The pleading look was gone, replaced by the familiar anger and defensiveness. You are blowing this all out of proportion. It was a mistake. And that toast was just a joke. You have ruined my life over a stupid joke. The gaslighting was so predictable, so pathetic. It did not even hurt me anymore. It was like listening to a recording. No, Mark, I said, my voice steady. You did not tell a joke. You revealed a truth. You revealed who you are. A man who thinks it is funny to humiliate his wife. A man who lies and steals. You did not think it was a joke when you and Jessica were planning it over text, were you? When you talked about putting me in my place. The color drained from his face. He had not known I had seen those messages. He had no idea how much I knew. He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. He had no words. He had run out of lies. You made your choice when you stood up and told that story, I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper. I just made mine. Now, if you are here for your things, you can schedule a time with my lawyer. Otherwise, you need to leave. I closed the door in his face. I leaned against it, my heart pounding, but I did not feel sad. I felt strong. I had faced him, and I had not backed down. The divorce was messy, but swift. The text messages made it impossible for him to contest anything. He had to pay me back the $5,000 he had taken, plus a significant portion of his own savings as part of the settlement. I found out through a mutual acquaintance that his reputation at his job had taken a hit, as several of his colleagues had been at the wedding. The story of the toast spread like wildfire. He was no longer seen as the charming, funny guy. He was seen as the cruel husband who got what he deserved. He and Nicole did not last. Apparently, the reality of his messy, public divorce was not as romantic as a secret getaway. Jessica, his sister, tried to send me a few nasty messages from a new account, but I just blocked her again. Their opinions no longer mattered to me. I moved into a new apartment, a small, sunny place that was all my own. I decorated it exactly how I wanted, with no one to tell me my taste was silly or old-fashioned. I focused on my graphic design business, and it thrived. Without Mark's constant belittling, my confidence grew, and I took on bigger and better clients. I reconnected with friends I had drifted away from because Mark had not liked them. My life became my own again. It was smaller, quieter, but it was real. Sometimes, when I am having a quiet evening, I think about that night at the wedding. I think about the look on Mark's face when he realized his world was collapsing. He had spent years making me feel small, making me the punchline. He thought he was in control of the story. But in the end, I was the one who got to write the ending. He wanted a reaction from me. For years, he had poked and prodded, trying to get a rise out of me, and I had given him nothing but quiet endurance. That night, I finally gave him the reaction he craved. And it was one he would never, ever forget. He finally learned what it felt like to be the punchline. And I learned what it felt like to be free.